at the latest Newsweek. Let's just fix it. Let's just fix it. And the thing that hit me, it says, forget Washington, move over, Mr. President. Every day Americans can turn this country around. And you come in here and you read this extensive article. I won't read it to you. Among all of these questions asked, here's the one that hit me the hardest. As a result, they asked the question, as a result of the economic situation, I've made the most changes in my life. And here they are. 55% said they've made a change in personal spending. That certainly makes sense. I know I have, and I know you probably have. I know most people have. So that would make sense. Personal spending. It's your spending habits are changed. You're spending less. Secondly on the list was personal savings. In other words, people are saving, starting to save more because they realize, hey, we got a problem here that Washington may not fix. Then the other one was debt reduction. 14% say we're trying to reduce our debt because of the economic situation. But then the last thing mentioned, only 3% said religious involvement. Isn't that amazing? Here they say it's the worst time in decades in America. All these problems, don't know how to fix them. Things are getting worse. The greatest thing is to fix is unemployment, then crime, then health care. And how does this affect you? What is this doing for you personally? As a result of this situation, here's the changes I made in my life. And only 3% say that they've increased religious involvement. Not long ago, USA Today did a whole story on how more and more Americans are getting religious, but they're making it their own religion. The folks who make up God as they go are side by side with self-proclaimed believers who claim the Christian label but shed their ties to traditional beliefs and practices. Religion statistics expert George Barna says, with a wry hint of exaggeration, America is headed for 310 million people with 310 million religions. We are a designer society. We want everything customized to our personal needs, our clothing, our food, our education. He says now it's our religion. Listen, one person quotes, they look at church and wonder, Jesus died for this? Barna laments, quote, people say I believe in God, I believe in the Bible is the good book, and then I go out and believe whatever I want. Can you hear that? Exactly. Says Carol Kristoloff. They interviewed this Carol Kristoloff person. She drifted through few mainline Protestant denominations in her youth, found a home and peace in the unity message of the Baha'i tradition several years, and then was drawn deeply into Native American traditional healing practices. She just kind of jumped from different things, yet she still calls herself a Christian. There you go. I've been saying this for years. You can be a Christian and believe anything you want nowadays. You can have this kind of Jesus and that kind of Jesus. Just add Jesus to your life. She says this, I'm kind of a bridge between cultures. I agree with the teachings of Jesus, and I know many Christians like me who keep the Bible's social teachings and who care for the earth and for each other. I support people who do good, whoever they are. Socialist Robert Bela saw this phenomenon emerging in the 80s. He wrote a book called Habitats of the Heart, and he introduced Sheela. Sheela says, I can't remember the last time I went to church. My faith has carried me a long way. It's Sheela-ism. Just my own little voice. I just try to love just try to love yourself and be gentle with yourself. You know, I guess take care of each other. I think God would want us to take care of each other. Here's a guy, Rusty Steele of Denver. He grew up a Lutheran. Retained his parents' strong moral code, he says, but he couldn't stick with the ancient myths of people trying to make sense of the world. I don't find much comfort in imagining there's an all-powerful God who would allow people starving and all the natural man-made disasters. See the same old wore-out arguments? Style calls himself a live and let live atheist. A man who was once a Christian. I won't read all of it, but it concludes, I just wiped the slate clean. I studied every major religion in the face of the earth. Everyone had its parts that made sense. So now I call myself an agnostic, one who just doesn't know. What I believe is that if you can do the right thing, it works everywhere. Now how does that have to tie in with the economy? I'll tell you why. Now that I'm all out of time. Deuteronomy chapter 8. Go read Deuteronomy chapter 8. I know there's a bunch of preachers, prosperity preachers that love to hammer Deuteronomy 8:18, Deuteronomy 8:18, and rarely do you get an offering preacher that will refer to Deuteronomy 8:18 and actually read you the whole context of Deuteronomy 8. They love verse 18 that says, "Thou shalt remember the Lord thy God, for it is he that gives thee power to get wealth, so that he may establish his covenant in the earth, which he sware to thy fathers." And that's great. It's wonderful. But you can't just take Deuteronomy 8:18, pull it out, and have it for your own benefit. The verse starts with, "Thou shalt remember." And if you back up to Deuteronomy 8 when it starts, just listen, just follow. Because preachers love to take out that verse and say it's God that gives us the power to get wealth, and they use that at offering time. But keep it in context, preacher. Put it back in the verse. Put the verse back in the whole passage, minister, please, please. Because you've done a disjustice to the Word of God. Because see, the whole chapter, the whole context is about God's people obeying His commandments. Not God's people saying, "I'm a Christian," but have 310 different religions. Oh, I believe the Bible. I believe it's a good book, but I believe whatever I want. I believe in Sheela-ism. See, that's where so-called Christians are in America today. Here's the problem. God says this, "All the commandments which I command thee this day, you shall observe it, and you shall do, that ye may live and multiply, and go in and possess the land which I swear to your fathers. And thou shalt remember all the way which the Lord thy God led thee these 40 years in the wilderness, to humble thee and prove thee, and know what was in thy heart." And he says in verse 3, "I humbled you and made you hungry, and fed you with manna, so that you would know that man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of the living God. Your raiment didn't wax old, neither did your foot swell for 40 years, so that you could consider in your heart that God chastened thee, so that you would keep the commandments and walk in His ways and fear Him." See, that's where we're at, America. Most Americans love to say they believe in Jesus and love to call themselves Christians, but they don't want to keep His ways, they don't want to keep His commandments, and they certainly don't want to fear Him, walk in the fear of the Lord. And God says, "I brought you into a good land, with water and fountains in the valleys and hills." He said, "I brought you to a land of wheat and barley and vines and figs and pomegranates and olive oil and honey." There's the prosperity. It comes from God. He says, "And I would, in the land, that you would eat bread without scarceness, and you'd not lack anything in it," he says. "But when thou hast eaten and thou art full, then thou shalt bless the Lord thy God for the good land which He has given thee, and beware that thou forget not the Lord thy God." Folks, why is all the economic problems that we got? Because He blessed us, but somewhere along the line we forgot that our blessings came from Him. Read this whole passage. I'm out of time. He says, you've lifted up your heart in pride, and you've forgotten me, God says in verse 14. And you've said in verse 17 that your power and your might. What did they say? What did they say? Don't let Washington fix it. Don't let the presidents fix it. No, we're going to stand up and we're going to fix it. Let's just fix it ourselves. And only 3% of the people saying, "We're going to fix America," ever said, "It caused me to be more religiously involved." Folks, it's not going to work because we've forgotten God. God says, "You said your power and your might, you have gotten this wealth." Now verse 18, "But you shall remember." You see how it totally changes that verse? "You shall remember that it's the Lord that gives thee the power to get wealth, so that He may establish His covenant." Verse 19, "So that you do not forget the Lord thy God, and walk after other gods, and serve them, and worship them, and testify against you this day, you shall surely perish. For the nations which the Lord destroyed before your face, so shall ye perish." Here it is, "because you were not obedient unto the voice of the Lord your God." Folks, what a sobering word. I believe it's a word that America needs right now. And if you're running from the God of the Bible, you say you love Jesus, you want Christianity, you want Jesus in your life, but you want to live your life based on Sheela-ism. That's the problem in Christianity. We've lost the fear of God. Till next time, I remind you the words of Jesus. He said, "Be ye therefore ready also, for in such an hour as ye think not, the Son of Man cometh."